Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today with me is Roman Peskin, the CEO and founder of ELVTR. I believe that's how it's pronounced, but you can correct me. And we'll talk about his company. But first, we'll focus on his experience with remote work. So I know that you have substantial experience with remote work. And before the show, we were chatting about what kind of things are best done remotely and what kind of things are best done in the office. So can you please share your perspective on that?
I think, well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Mhm.
Um, Almost anything can be done remotely well. Maybe in our case, with an exception of sales.
Mm.
Salespeople function better when you put them in the box in one room and they sort of stew and brew there in their own environment. They need this high energy environment. They need that little noise going on. They need to hear others, other reps on the phone. There's a lot of exchange of ideas happening, and they can hear others speaking. Oh, that's a nice phrase that you use
Mm.
in the push, and it doesn't really happen very well in remote
Mhm.
environment. Our policy is that we do allow sales folks to work remotely after they have worked for a number of months from the office and
Mm.
after they've learned everything and showed good numbers, and they went on a provisional work from home month, and if the
Mhm.
numbers didn't dip, then they can continue.
Mhm.
But more generally speaking, remote for sales always has shown lower numbers than
Mm.
sales from the office.
That makes sense. Now, how do you manage the other aspects of remote work? So, how do you make sure that all the other challenges of remote work, collaboration, innovation, other team members, that they function effectively in a remote setting?
First of all, it's like I like cooking. I like cooking. I like eating. I like food, and people often ask like, "How do you cook decent XXX?" And then put your favorite dish in there. And it always starts with picking right ingredients and then just not screwing up. That's pretty much their approach to good dishes. So you pick good people and
Mhm.
then just let them do their work.
Mm.
Um, Not in the micromanaging sense at all.
Mhm.
You make sure they have all the resources they need.
Mhm.
They make sure that they have the onboarding and the training that they need to do the job, and you just let them do the job. Um, I'm. It comes down to how people understand what's a life and work balance. When I'm asked what's your approach to work life balance, I was like, listen, guys, if we think that a traditional approach to work life balance is working from, say, it doesn't matter what the number is, but say from 9 to 5, right?
Mhm.
And so before 5, it's work, and after 5, I'm done with work and getting my balance, and it's going to be life now. But if you say that your life starts after 5, you logically must afford the idea that before 5 you didn't have a life.
Mhm.
That work is not life, and it's not compatible with life, and I strongly oppose such sentiment.
Mm.
I think we live 24/7, and
Mhm.
sometimes we work in odd hours just because I feel like it. It's not because
Mhm.
I'm being exploited by someone, but if I feel like at 11 p.m. I have energy and I have an inspiration to go and do
Mhm.
something, I'm going to go and do something. And for example, me personally, I'm probably getting old, and I'm getting more productive in the early mornings now. I used to
Mm.
be sort of a night owl, and now I'm actually more of a early bird. And when I'm in Kiev, we traditionally start working. The team starts working at noon, so that we're a little more aligned with the U.S. part of the team.
Okay.
Our official hours in Kiev are noon to 8 p.m.
Hmm.
But I get up at 7 and I start working at 7 just because I'm productive at that time.
Hmm.
And by the time teams come up online, I've been very very productive. I've done a lot of things,
Hmm.
and then but I leave a little early because I'm pretty much useless at 8 p.m. And that's how we treat the team. We have certain hours when we expect and sort of demand people to overlap their work schedulers so
Hmm.
that they can be found online and have Zoom meetings and
Yeah.
so on. But other than that, we're very flexible with the time with scheduler. We
Hmm.
have people in various time zones, and some of the time zones are 11, 12 hours away. Um, as long as you do the job, as long as you
Hmm.
know how to do the job, it doesn't matter where you are.
That's interesting. So, kind of being productive outside of the quote unquote typical hours. So, I helped 21 companies transition to hybrid remote work. And one of the issues that is a challenge is this idea of burnout expectations. So, what we did is we established clear expectations that you can send emails outside of work hours, but are not expected to respond to emails or Slack messages outside of work hours. Inside work hours, you're expected to respond. I mean, it depends on the company, but let's say you're expected to respond to a Slack message within 2 hours within a certain shared period of time. You're expected to respond to an email message by the next day. So those sorts of expectations we found have helped reduce burnout and help people have clear expectations and norms about who is there, who is engaged, who is not, and how they actually communicate with each other effectively. So I'm curious if you found some of that in your own work.
That's very true, and that's exactly how we do that. Because
Mm.
when I'm in California, and I'm used to living in two different time zones. So before the Russian war in Ukraine, I used to spend
Hmm.
50-50, about a month of my time in Kyiv, Ukraine, and a month of my time in California. So and naturally, there will always be time when I'm out of sync time wise with someone in
Sure.
my team, and then we ask people to treat messages that come during the offline hours, to
Hmm.
treat them as an inbox. You don't have to respond to them. You don't have to read them. You don't have to act upon them. And that's how I do that. I'm trained myself to look at, oh, I have 25 unread messages in Slack. Okay, well, I'm going to read them when I feel like it.
Hmm.
And by the way, we have eliminated email completely. Like, we don't
Okay.
use email. We only use email to communicate with the outside world, but
Mm.
internally it's Slack only.
Fair
But
enough.
then there's also an escalation mechanism. If someone is needed now,
Hmm.
then it's a Telegram, or that's our favorite messenger. But I understand that some teams might have WhatsApp or something.
Sure.
For example, I have Slack notifications turned off on my phone. I don't
Mm.
want it to ding every time
Makes
the
sense.
team sends me a message. But I do have a habit of checking them every half an hour or so.
Hmm.
And if they need me urgently, then they can ping me in Telegram, and that pretty much ensures almost immediate response. Yeah, the ability of a team to organize its work processes around different time zones is very important in the remote work settings,
Hmm.
for sure.
Now, we were chatting before the start of the show that I have family in Kiev, and obviously you live, in Kiev, and you still somewhat live in Kiev. How did the approach to remote work change for your Kiev team given the war? I know you said you have an office in Kiev, and but now most people work remotely. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, we did have and we do have an office. For anyone but sales team, it was sort of an optional place to go to, but it was
Hmm.
never enforced. It was more like, hey guys, if you need a place to work and you don't feel comfortable at home, for various reasons, some people just want to get away from home, from because at home there was a fridge, there's a TV, there's a coach,
Sure.
all these things that get in between you and work. And a lot of people used to like coming to the office because they meet their colleagues,
Hmm.
coworkers, they hang out, some social activity. But sales, like I said before, they would just go there
Hmm.
mandatory. Then the war happened, and the remote work was like taking Zoom calls from bomb shelters. And I'm not kidding. I
Yeah.
have a lot of recordings of people taking Zoom calls from literally bomb shelters,
Hmm.
and I have recordings with the air raid sirens going on the
Oof.
background,
Wow.
and well, they go off in Kyiv today 2 3 times during the day. I
Hmm.
just came from there 2 days ago, so that's pretty much a new norm now.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of people learn to ignore them, and well, sometimes those are the things that shouldn't be ignored. But anyways, and then the team has spread out across mostly Western Ukraine because Kiev wasn't a very safe place in the
Yeah.
beginning of the war,
Sure.
and a lot of people left Kiev, and we tried, you know, to help sometimes when we could, to find a place where to go. Some people came to Europe. We
Hmm.
have offices in Hungary, in Poland, in Romania, and in Prague. So our sort of main European office is in
Hmm.
Hungary, in Budapest. So a lot of people came to Budapest because there was like an established base there where they
Hmm.
could come, and we rented a motel on the outskirts of the city,
Hmm.
the whole motel, the entire of it. That was our
Oh.
base for our operations for, I think, good half a year. At some point, there were like about 30, 40 people from Ukraine living there temporarily before they find something else, like a permanent apartment in the city, or they moved on, they went to other countries, or they went back. So that was a whole sort of uh, uh, temporary facility going on there.
Hmm.
Um, Now it's sort of more settled. Those people who wanted to be in Kiev really, really bad, then they went back to Kiev. Some remained in Europe. Some are still in the west of Ukraine, which I expect is going to be more and more difficult because of the energy situation in
Yeah.
Ukraine. Myself included, some people were less terrified by the bombs, just simply given the statistical chance of a bomb hitting your building wasn't very, very high. But now, when the blackouts, when half of the city sits without the energy, without power for half a day, then that pretty much destroys the lifestyle as it is. You can't
Yeah.
work, you can't do anything, you don't have water. So I would probably expect a new wave of people living in Ukraine
Hmm.
now.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
That makes sense. And then your company will be sponsoring them, sheltering them, helping them figure out what to do in Europe
A few
somewhere.
folks came over to the US, and we actually finally opened an office in the US
Hmm.
a few months ago for the salespeople, like I said, only.
Oh.
Although, we have some production people in the US that are welcome to come to the office if they want
Hmm.
to. But the main reason for opening the office was to create a US located sales team. We have had sales teams in Ukraine. That's how we started. Then we had one and we still have one in Mexico City, and now we have one in the US.
Well, let's turn back. We've been talking a little bit about your company. Let's turn back and have you share about your entrepreneurial journey. How did you come to start ELTVR? And share a little bit more about the company, of course.
We call it elevator. It's just like elevator without the vowels.
Elevator. Okay, elevator.
Um,
Fair enough. Good. No.
well, elevator goes back in its roots to a Ukrainian company called Laba, Laba. And Laba has started doing online education courses about 7 years ago in Ukraine. And over time, it quickly grew in a household name in Ukraine, pretty much. Amongst the young professional community, pretty much everyone knows it, and a lot of people have taken a course or two or three or five from Laba. And when I met the founder of Laba a couple of years ago, I was like, well, maybe not such a bad idea to export this into other countries, and we decided that we're going to create a separate brand for the U.S. market. I joined the company as a co-founder, although initially I was not the one who created the very initial company. But I'm the one who runs the U.S. business and overall English-speaking countries business. And now Laba, as a global company, we operate Elevator brand in the U.S., Laba brand in Eastern Europe and Ukraine. We also have a Scrote brand in Europe for creative classes. And I believe we're soon going to be in a few other large West European markets. And we're looking at a few others worldwide.
And so tell us a little bit more about what Elevator does.
We do online courses, but they're quite different from almost any others. It's a cohort-based education, so it's not an asynchronous course. We believe that proper education should be happening through an interaction with your instructor. Between instructors and students, they've got to be a certain degree of interaction. So our courses are live online in Zoom, and it increases the participation, it increases the completion rate, because I'll tell you honestly that one of the two main problems with online education is that the completion rate is terribly low.
Yeah.
People who buy courses online, they tend not to go through it and finish them. It's the same as you go into Barnes and Noble's bookstore and you buy a book, make an impulse purchase, spend $20 thinking, oh, I'm buying this book, about marketing, and I'm investing in myself, and I'm going to be smarter about marketing when I buy this book. Well, the big surprise is that you're going to become smarter about marketing when you read this book, not when you buy it. And I'm guilty as charged as well. I have a bookshelf full of books that I haven't read, and I maybe have skimmed through them and just scanned them but not read them, and I bought them for some reason. And I brought them home, put them on the bookshelf, and never opened them again. That happened to me. And the same happens with online courses. But when the course is taught in real life, in real time, not in real life, then people tend to show up, because it's Wednesdays and Fridays at 7 p.m. And you have also a possibility to talk to your instructor. And then the other important differentiator is that, as opposed to most online course platforms, where they're platforms in the sense that you can build your own course about anything, and you can put it on this platform and start selling it, and if it sells well, great. The problem is that nobody curates these people. It's very difficult to understand whether or not they have credentials to teach about anything. And I'm a big fan of credentials. I think, before you teach anything, you should really know how to do this first. And unfortunately, with online education in this area, when from Instagram, every other ad is screaming at you about, I'm going to teach you how to make $1 million in 5 days. Or I'm going to teach you this, I'm going to teach you that. Just give me a little bit of money and I'm going to teach you something tremendous. I don't think if these people have ever done this. And who said they're qualified to teach? So we do this differently. We basically headhunt our instructors ourselves. We build our courses. They're very curated. All our instructors come from very famous blue chip companies with high level positions within these companies, and no one ever will question their credibility and their credentials for teaching a particular subject. They've done it many years. They've done it at multiple famous companies. So that's our approach. In online live courses taught by unquestionable experts.
Okay. So I certainly understand about the asynchronous and synchronous courses. When I teach asynchronous courses, when I put them together, I see that the student completion rate is much lower than when I teach cohort courses. So I certainly understand that. So that's totally understandable. I'm curious about the instructors. So the instructors, when I would think about credentials, I think definitely people from blue chip companies, but also I think people who are, let's say, wrote good books about this topic, ones that show them as credentialed, so that show the expertise, and or are professors at universities who know about the topic. So I'm curious why you chose, there are a number of ways of showing credentials. I'm curious why you focused at blue chip companies.
I've done a fair amount of university education myself. I mean, when I say I've done it, meaning I've spent enough time studying at universities. And very often, including my MBA degree, when you sit in the audience, in the auditorium, and the professor is teaching you, is telling you about something, you ask yourself a question: why are you teaching me about this? So you clearly have done a lot of research on the subject. You've written a couple books about the subject, but I'm not quite sure if you actually have done the thing. That's the problem with professors. Not to, question the concept of academia, but to question the concept of pure academia teaching people who expect practical skills. And what we teach practical skills that I'm pretty sure very few professors actually know, unless they have been engaged in some serious real life consulting work. There are some professors who do consulting on the side, and those usually have my deepest respect because they combine academia with the real life. But a lot of academia have long lost the connection with the real life and with real jobs and with real markets, and that's why I'm sort of known for giving a lot of critique about the current system of college education today in the U.S. And when we teach the same thing to everyone, and we often teach it using professors who have never done the thing or have done it very long time ago and very little, but they have written their PhD theses and they have done a lot of research and published a lot of books, but they haven't really done this. That's why we do things differently. We work with experts who come from the field, who come from the trenches.
Okay, so you would work with experts from blue chip companies and professors who do consulting on the side, but you wouldn't work with people who did not do consulting, who didn't have that experience. That makes sense. Yeah, and a lot of education in the current days, I think, a lot of it is about signaling. I mean, showing that you have gotten the diploma, meaning that you are able to do work rather than that you learned something useful. So that's kind of something that I think is definitely a problem with the modern education system.
Absolutely. And the more prestigious is the diploma, the more we tend to trust it blindly. Whereas I've met a lot of people who didn't have really good GPA scores at all. But they are one of the smartest people I've met. They were just bored at schools and bored at universities, and they just weren't motivated to get good grades. But they're incredibly talented professionals.
Mhm.
And on the other hand, I know quite a few people with straight A's, but that was the only talent they have. Just, you know, uh, put a lot of effort into studying
Sure.
and put a lot of effort into, getting the grades, passing the tests. But then they have no idea how to apply this knowledge to real life, how to benefit from it. And
Mhm.
I know quite a few straight A's who aren't really big achievers.
Makes sense. Now, when you think about education inside Elevator for your own team, what kind of training do you do for your own team?
That's actually a subject that is pretty hotly debated right now.
Oh.
We internally, because I think that at some point I realized that we don't do a very good job at this.
Mm.
With that, we're that proverbial.
The shoemaker without shoes?
Yes, yes. And so we need to eat our own dog food at some
Yeah.
point. And I have appointed someone in the team who is now responsible for developing the internal L&D program, learning and development
Hmm.
programs for the teams. Because we have really, really strong people in the team.
Hmm.
We're extremely demanding, we're very selective. But nobody knows everything. And I realized that most of my team members could benefit from learning something that they currently don't have, the knowledge, and we're gonna start doing that pretty soon. But that's a good subject.
Hmm.
I think a lot of companies, if it's a big company, they have big L&D programs and budgets and
Hmm.
so on. But a lot of startups, they're not very focused on developing their own teams,
Hmm.
which is a mistake.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake, and I was wondering how you did it, given that you're an education company.
We know how to do it, like we
Yes.
know how to build courses and we know how to teach people.
Hmm.
We just never thought about teaching our own people, and now
Yeah.
we have, and now we will start doing it.
And do you think you'll be doing it remotely? Do you think you'll be doing something in person? What are your thoughts about that direction, that type of issue?
Let's talk about it in a month or two.
Fair enough. Fair
We're
enough.
still yet to figure that out.
All right. Is there anything about remote work that I haven't asked you? Anything else that you would like to share about remote work, about Elevator before we wrap up?
I think we're good. Thank you very much for the wonderful opportunity.
You're very welcome. And thank you to all the listeners for listening and checking out this episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Again, my name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts. I hope you subscribe to this show and please leave a review on whatever platform you checked out the show. It helps other people discover the show. Thank you very much again, Roman, and look forward to seeing everyone on the next episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. In the meantime, the wisest and most profitable decisions to you, my friends.